Wonderful. So again, Chris with Click Team. If you couldn't hear me for the first 30 seconds, today we're going to work on Inventory Quest, the inventory example that we released last week. And what we're going to do is we're going to add stacking. We had a couple of requests for stacking, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea. We'll try to do that. And then we're going to dabble a little bit in procedural generation. So I hope you like what you see. And all of the examples that we're working on today, again, are available to Reactor members on the Reactor, which is our patron service, which you can find right here. And yeah, some cool stuff in there. You can get them off the forums or as a Reactor member. You can grab them off of ClickStore. You can see Inventory Quest is right there. And currently, I think we have 1, 2, 3. No, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 permanent free examples, and that list will continue to grow. So we should probably get started. So on Patreon, one of the users has suggested stacking inventory. So if we take a look at the example we have now, and I still don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear me. Good. Let's run the app. So this is what we have so far. And of course, you walk around, and there's your inventory by hitting I, just like the one user requested. I think it might have even been null that said hit I. I'm not quite sure. And then shift to attack. And then the items are generated, and then you can pick them up. So we just picked up a whistling sword. If we go to the inventory, we should find glorious sword, fat sword. I don't see where the whistling sword is. It's here somewhere. And then you can take a sword item, an item that you don't like, for instance, a sword. We could take the awesome sword, drop it off screen, and then it'll regenerate. And it says I dropped the awesome sword, and then I can pick it back up. And I believe it's stuck it over here. There's awesome sword. You can move the items around the grid. You can't overlap. It won't allow you. You can place them wherever you want. It accounts for size. So if we pick up a single square item, it'll populate here, or a double square item. Let's try to make a double item. So a double item would have to end up being in this slot if the engine's working correctly. Let's take a look. So we're going to go kill some more skeletons until we find the right item. Yeah, we'll get rid of the inventory. I also added gold. Someone asked for gold, so you can collect gold. Oop. Okay, so there it goes. I picked up the fat pole, and it dropped it here because it intelligently checks for the size as per the request. Now, as you notice, we've got several items that, let's see if we find any duplicates. Glorious potion, fat potion, awesome potion. So here are 2 glorious potions. So the user had suggested, wouldn't it be cool if we could stack them? So I guess the first thing we have to do when we want to stack items is, as we generate these items, we got to give them some form of unique identifier that would merge them. Now, one thing that wouldn't work in our example is the strength and defense for each item is randomly generated. So, of course, it doesn't seem to be randomly generated here, but let's see if we can find another similar pair. Well, that's interesting. So we know these 2 are not the same. These seem to be duplicated. So here's a plain potion, whistling potion. Let's look at swords. Awesome sword. My concern is if you take a look down here at the bottom, we have strength and defense, which I believe was randomly generated at the time, and you would have to, I guess in the case of all the weapons, you'd have to make sure that when stacking that the values are exactly the same. So how do we do that? Well, one way we could do it is when we generate, we could give them an ID. So let's look at our objects. Got to get refamiliarized here. Let's see here. So down here is where we create our items. Okay. No, it's not. It's, here we go. So this is where we're creating the new objects, and this is where we're randomly generating that data. And you can see that it's based on these values here. So we would need a unique unified identifier for all these objects. And I think when we can do that, it's not that difficult. We'll use a value. And let's see, where are our 3 types of items? Must be hidden because I got the, there we go. Layers hidden. There they are. So we got item 1, 2, 3, and 4. I believe that's correct. And we're going to go ahead and give them stack ID. And what will stack ID be? Well, we go here and we will insert value set. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with some strings. We're going to take the animation slot number, which is right here. Well, it should be. Set animation slot to image. Unless I'm looking at the wrong item, I am. There we go. So animation slot. And I totally didn't put it in the right spot. So we do like this. Drop it in here. The idea is to build a concatenated value that is a combination of the various different aspects of the item. So then we'll string again, and we will say defense. Probably also need item type. So yeah, we'll get defense value. We'll start with strength, then defense. String value defense. Okay, and then we take all those strings and convert them into a value. Now we're going to need to add identifier as well, the item type. But before we do that, let's test it and make sure it's working. So we'll just put it on, we'll append it to this text string here. And I guess we got to make it string again. And let's see if that works. Of course, we're probably going to want a space. So plus space. And I put 2 pluses, so that makes no sense. There we go. And then we need to generate a sword and pick it up. And this guy looks like our first victim. No sword. There's a sword. Right, so this sword is animation slot 8, and then I believe probably 5 for strength and 15 for armor. And together that makes it 8515, which is the unique identifier number for that sword. So that will help us match the swords up. Kind of like you would when you're pairing an active object to another object and you use the retrieve fixed value. We need a unique identifier that is common between the shared items. So hoping that that works. The other one we wanted to add was type, and we can pull it from the direction. So we'll go here, item type, we'll add an additional string value, and this time we will take the directional value of the reader, because that's what we're using to determine which type of object we're making. And if we've done that right, we need to add that into our test string. We would slap that bad boy right there. And then if we run it, we'll go sword hunting. Ooh, there's a sword. So now we have that 6 for the 6th item type, which is the direction. So if we look at our directions, that makes no sense, does it? Because the direction shouldn't be 6. We should probably do a couple tests. Let's pick up a couple swords. The reason I say that is the direction value should have been 0. Oh, that's a bug. So that one says 1. I'm picking up way too much garbage. You'd think we would have gotten a sword by now. These skeletons are doing a poor job of stealing swords. Nope. How about you, friend? Nope. There you go, there's one sword. So we'll pick this one up. So it says 7916. I'm going to write that down. And then I'm going to go into my inventory. And, okay, so it's 9 for strength, as you can see down here, and 16 for defense. And it's saying 7 then for the animation slot. And it's this kind of curved sword action. So we can test that by going into here. And the 7th one would be the 8th frame, because it's 0 based. And in fact, that's the right sword. Now, what's interesting is our identifier didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because a string value of 0 is nothing. So what we probably need to do is take this direction and add 1. And let's see if that works. So I'm going to copy that over to our test string. Like that. Put it in the actual code. Here we go. And then we'll run it. Cool looking staff, but no, that's not what we want. There's a sword. So the first number should be 1, and it is. Let's write that whole number down. We got 1, 1, so we got 4 1s and 420. And it's called the power sword. So let's go into our inventory and let's look for the power sword. Okay, so that's interesting. Seems to have more information in it than it should. So we've got, no, that's not the right one then. So it's very well possible I have a, there we go. So it's this one, not that one. Okay, that makes sense. So this power sword is 14 and 20, but now we've got to figure out where the 4 1s comes from. So let's go ahead and take a look at the animations. And it is animation 11, so that would make sense. So now all that's left is where did the 11 come from, the first 11. And that's interesting. I don't know. Let's take a look. We take the direction and we added 1 as a value. So why don't we just take a look and see what just this gives us. Missing a close bracket. There we go. And we'll run it that way. Okay, there's a sword. 1. Okay, good. That's the expectation. So now let's test it with another sword and make sure that we get the same results. There we go, 1. Now, I don't know why it rotated animation like that. It shouldn't have done that. But it still calls it 1, so that's good. So, pretty confident that it's returning 1 like it's supposed to. Let's toss some items out of our inventory. Looks like we got a bug on 1. Maybe you can't rapidly toss them. All right. Okay, so the idea then is to build that unique identifier name under, and that's not the right category, we want it under stacked ID. And then we copy that event. And then we go to all 3 places, the remaining 3 object types in our demonstration example. Excellent. Now, we'll go to our test. I'm going to turn on our test string real quick, which I believe we were repurposing this. I wonder if I destroy that string. Let's take a look. String message, string inventory, string credits. I do destroy the string, so we're going to see if I close the group. Okay, good. So then I don't have to destroy the string for now. And then we'll go down here. Always. Oh, rather, if mouse is overlapping one of our inventory items. If it is, then make this visible. And change the alternable string to string and pull the value of our stacked ID. Okay. So inventory. None of these are stacked IDs because I haven't written them yet in, because these items are generated on the fly. So those are items that are loaded, so we're going to need to take our stacked ID code and go back to load, and we got to rewrite it. So that one works. And then we just say, we could probably do it. Right, strength. And then right here, we grab defense. And then item type. I don't see us using the item type variable, which we need. So that's interesting. Oh, I think we do use it because it is embedded in right there. So then we say here, instead of the direction, we use the we get the element 1, right? But we have to convert that into a value first because it's always going to return a 1 currently. So it looks like I didn't paste correctly, so we'll have to do it over. Get element 1, then we'll add 1 to that value. Actually, we have to add the 1 outside the value here. Then we'll pull that entire bit, convert it back to a string so that it gets added to the other string conversions. And then it gets turned back into a value to give us the concatenated number. So we take that event, that action rather, and we paste it in the other areas that needs it. Now, having done it, whoop, wrong shortcut. If I did it right, then we should be able to see our stack IDs. Okay, inventory. And down here we should see the stack ID. There it is. Both these glorious potions have the same stack ID. But this awesome potion has a different stack ID. So there you go. So now we've got matching stack IDs. Now currently we still can't stack them. So now we have to run an additional bit of code to make that happen. And as I always do with you guys, I'm making it up as I go. Let's see if we have any questions so far. If I can get this chat program to work correctly. Oh, pop out. Nice. All right. Hello, Simon. Let's see if there's any questions on Twitch. So Jeff's saying he doesn't have any sound. Do you have sound now, Jeff? I checked it here. There is sound. And, okay, good. And excellent. All right, so now we got a stack. Now let's look at our code and see where we're preventing a stack from happening. So pick up and move items happens here. This is where we select one object based on the fixed value. We click on that object. So in case two are overlapped on each other, you'd only ever select one because you're storing the fixed value in select object fixed value in our local stat storage, which means that when the mouse key is held down and they match, we're able to go ahead and drag it around. When we let it go, then and we're overlapping a backdrop, right? Then we drop it, we snap it into position and drop it where we're supposed to. Now, if we're not overlapping the inventory, then we set the alpha blending coefficient to 0. Just that's a fail-safe in case it's semi-transparent still. And if it is overlapping while we're holding, then we set it to 125. And if we're overlapping another group inventory item, then we snap it back to its original position. So it's line 24 here is where we're going to have an issue that we're going to have to try to figure it out. Now the idea is we need to run some form of comparison. We want to say, you know, compare to alterable values. We want to say, is the stack ID different than the stacked ID of the other object that has been selected through the collision or the overlap? So that should continue to work. Let's see what happens. So we're pulling up our inventory. We've got a gleaming sword and a fat sword. So I'm going to try to drop the gleaming sword on the fat sword. And it popped on. So that didn't work. So we've got an issue there. So how do we fix that? Well, I am going to try something by going to our fixed value storage, or local storage, and I'm going to say overlapped stack ID. I think that might be the way to go. So I'm declaring a new variable in my local storage object. And then where we have line 24, I'm going to create a new line. I'm going to say, is group item overlapping group inventory? And if so, in our gold text, so we'll hijack the gold text real quick, we're going to convert its stack ID to a string. The reason why we're going to do that is we're going to run a comparison here. We know that this item, Gleaming Sword, is 181010. So I'm writing it down here. And we know that this is 112310. So in theory, when I overlap this on this one, we should see 112310 here. Let's take a look. And it is not happening. Most interesting. Well, that may not be actually the case because, in fact, my gold string is overriding it. So that's my bad. Let's go ahead and just deactivate this briefly. And we'll try again. And somehow I've blown up all the objects. That's probably because this item, in fact, is also controlling the animation slots. So we'll turn that back on and we'll just remove this. All right, same values. There it is. So in theory, it's working. Okay, good. So with that information, what we do is we go back to the new line 24, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to change alterable value overlap stacked ID to value, retrieve the stacked ID from the object that has been selected in that overlap, which means we can take this expression and change it to the overlap to the isolated value on the side. So that should work. We'll first try it with the objects we know don't match, and it snaps back. Okay, now these two objects are the same. They have the same value, so it should not snap back. And it did. Look, it's stacked. Now, of course, I can still pull one out, but theoretically, they've stacked. Okay, so we're close. We're close on our stacking. Next thing we're going to need is probably, for giggles, a string. Go ahead and give it a gold color. Make it small by use of the small fonts. Let's see, 5 too big? Yeah, that's a little too small. So let's pump it up. Let's go max size, which is a huge 7. Let's test it. Throw a number in there. Good, 2. And we'll cut that string down to size. Center it. Okay. Now, the next thing to do is to figure out how we want to embed the quantity. So what we could do is, again, grab all 4 of our item types and then give it a quantity stacked value. So by selecting all 4 of the items, they all have matching alternate values, so I was able to add a 4th matching one without another one without issue. Okay, so we'll default that value to 1 because its initial state will always be 1. And then in our load routine, in our save routine, we're going to have to add that additional piece of information. So we find where we're saving the string data, and it's right here. So we go here, and then on the end of our string, we grab another delimiter. We say string, and give us our stacked value, a quantity stacked. And that should protect our saving the data, and then we need to load it in, which isn't that hard. We just go here, copy, change the value, selected, and change which delimited piece of data that we're grabbing. I want to copy that. They go to the event list editor, and we're going to drop it in here as well. Dragging icons in Fusion is one of the things that makes it so easy to use. Just boom, done. Okay, so now we're loading and saving that data, and we've defaulted them to 1. Now we have to try to stack it. So back on line 24 and 25, we're selecting, and we have an action if they don't match. We now need an action if they do match. So what I'm going to try to do is this, and then I'm going to do what? What am I going to do? The issue is we determined that we had a hard time selecting this object during when we ran this event here, when it was stacked ID versus the secondary label group inventory stacked ID, it wasn't selecting it, and that's why we isolated the stack ID separately. So what if we stored the fixed value of it as well? So overlapped fixed value, and then we go in here, copy, change it to the next value, and then we grab its fixed value. And to make sure that we're actually getting some information, let's convert that to a string and display the fixed value in our gold box. Okay, so I'm going to pick up this potion and I'm going to try to put it over here, and there we go. We can see the unique fixed values are being pulled. So that's good. That's a good start. Okay, so we're saying if it's equal, then instead of positioning it, right, what we're going to do is we're going to destroy it, and then run a fast loop, and we'll call it stack, and we'll run it once, insert a new event, and on loop, stack, I believe is what I used. It is. And as I'm doing this, I had one more thought. We need yet another variable, and we're going to declare that variable up here. When we're mixed here, we're going to say quantity of selected item. Okay, well, why am I doing that? Because what if we are going to stack two stacks together? We might want to put 5 on 5 to make 10. So to do that, we're going to have to carry that quantity of selected item from the, which I don't know why it's not changing. It's supposed to show the properties here, but anyways, from quantity stacked. Okay, so we're going to put that right here. We're going to say set the quantity of selected item to the value of quantity stacked. Perfect. Okay, so then down here, when we loop our stack, we also need to say, where is it? I'm sorting, excuse me. Okay, we also need to say if the fixed value equals the stored fixed value, that will select this one particular item. Oh, incorrect. We need overlap fixed value. So this will help us identify which one we're manipulating. And then we're going to add to quantity stacked the extra value that we just created, which was quantity of the selected item. Okay. All right. Now, we have our mouse over event, which we're going to change from stack ID to string value quantity stacked. And that's how we'll test it. If any of this makes sense to you. So we got our inventory, and down here we should see 1 for everything. And we don't. We don't see 1 for anything. And that simply could be because none of these items have been created with that value already, so they default to 0. So to fix that, we'll run a little bit of code, and we'll just say always. This is just a temporary bit to fix our data that is in the, we don't have a 6th delimiter yet in our save file. And if we do, they're all set to 0. So what we're going to do is say always value set that quantity stacked to 1. And if we run it now, they should all say 1. They do, because they're forced to. And then by forcing a save, we should end up writing 1. And we are. So everything's 1. And we still have our matching items. So if I turn this off, willing, it will reflect that new delimiter. And here we go, inventory. And there's the 1. Good. Now we can test the stacking. So these 2 items, I can't stack it on here. Oh, I can. That's not good. That shouldn't have happened. All right, I don't know why that happened. We just tested that. All right. This item does not match this item, and so thus it will not stack. This item doesn't match this item, thus it will not stack. These 2 match, and thus can stack. But it didn't add to the value. You can see that the value didn't get added. So we're not quite there yet. All right. So where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? Fixed value overlaps fixed value, and overlap fixed value overlap stack ID. if stack ID equals overlap stack ID, then destroy and run loop. I wonder if by moving that does anything. It shouldn't. It's just me guessing. And okay, so our potions are back. Nothing. And even worse, those two were willing to overlap. I wonder, does it make sense to make sure that I don't have fine detection on, so that can't be it. Fine detection, of course, takes the shape of the object and turns it into a pixel by pixel collision. Turning it off, the bounding box or space, which is this entire 32 by 32 pixel space, becomes collidable, which is perfect for menu generation. So we'll try it in reverse. Still 1. Very interesting. Am I pulling the right value? That's the other thing we have to test. So I'm saying down here, mouse pointer over item, quantity stack. That's correct. And on our loop, which is up where? Here. Add quantity of select item to quantity stacked. And I am making sure that that's what I'm asking for. Yes. Did I put it in the right item? All right. Time for our testing. List object. And let's first see if it's even triggering. So that's list names test. Okay, change alterables, add a line, and it's going to be string value overlaps fixed value, which is what we're right. Okay, good. All right. So let's make sure there's no other test data that we don't need. We don't need that. 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 Test data left in previous testing. So inventory. The fixed value for this item is no longer displayed because, well, it will if I overlap. So 13369,547 is the fixed value. If I let go, it is selecting the right item, but is not reflecting the, okay, and that's interesting, and it did trigger. So the next thing to do is to see if add quantity stacked to, let's see if this is passing anything. So we're going to add space, string, and convert. Okay. One, drop on. Okay. So it's still returning a 1. Well, that's what it's supposed to return. But it doesn't seem to want to return. All right. Well, we have to see if this even affects the item. Are we selecting the right item? So what we'll do is we'll remove that, and we're just going to blow up the scale. So let's say scale 5. That way we can visually see if we're getting an effect. And there we go. That's the issue. It's not. Let's make sure there's nothing preventing it from scaling. We've got multiple here events that so nothing relative to scaling there. We're dealing with the potion. Nothing relative to scaling there. So that's our issue. Through debugging, we've determined that the reason why it's not stacking the values is because the fixed value comparison on my line is not, which is right up here, is not selecting the proper inventory item, which is really weird because it's returning that. Interesting. Destroy too early in loop. Perry, that's a good question. I don't know. Let's take a look. Well, it shouldn't matter because when you say that, if we look at the list here, I'm storing the select object fixed value. Maybe that's it. Let's see. Overlap fixed value, which is picked up here. So whenever, so that is working. We are, and we can double check that by doing this. So we're changing credits, and let's also add plus space string retrieve fixed value. So we go to inventory. That's saying it's 131729936, and we're getting a different value up there, aren't we? We certainly are. We're getting the same value. Most interesting. Okay, so you're probably right. We are destroying it too early. It's destroying... It's adding to this one and destroying that one. So, could we recursively handle that? Could we go back to this view? Could we still have to destroy one of them, though. We still have to destroy the one below it, and I still can't select that one. That's the issue. I need to be able to select that second one. Interesting. So whoever suggested this, good job. You've stumped me. Well, let's see if anybody else has a suggestion. Let's see what our YouTube friends are saying. Okay. Yeah, no comments there. I'll just shut that down. Time for 290.5, huh? Well, I don't think that's going to fix the issue because, as you know, Perry, being a long-time user, it's an object selection issue, and that's what Fusion 3 is going to be for, fixing all those. And we're going to have to try to code around the issue here. Okay. So, this event isn't really pulling the data that we thought it was, if I understand that correctly. Right, because this is, down here it says 131729936 for the top potion. And the bottom potion is 133695547. So up here, it should be this number when I overlap, but it's not. Now it's a totally different number. No, same number. Interesting. Getting all sorts of weird returns, aren't we? All right. Okay, well, what if we tried this? I don't know if it's going to work. It doesn't hurt. We'll create a new object, and we'll call it, it'll just be an overlap detector. on. Yes. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, crop. Make it yellow. Hopefully we can see it. Okay. So, repeat when left mouse key is pressed. And then we're going to take that new object, position, select position, right over the instanced object in order to the front so we can make sure it's there. Alright. And that's close. It's offset, and that's probably because I didn't fix the hotspot of the object in question. So where do we put that object? It's too small to find now, so we go to here. Where's our hotspot? Indeed, it's way off. Center it. Run it again. And it's putting it in the corner, which is to be expected. And we don't want it in the corner. So we could try offsetting it by 16 by 16. That should smack it squarely in the middle of the object when it's a small object. And it does, and it should put it in the top corner right there. Okay, good. All right, so now we have an overlap detection. And then here, can we say is overlapping and is different? Will that give us the proper information? So, right, and it doesn't pick it up, unfortunately. Maybe it's on the wrong layer. It very well could be. I'm on layer, yeah, so the inventory is on layer 3. I put the item on layer 4. That's a no-no. Of course, now I got to find that ridiculously small yellow dot. Where did I put it? Okay, so 0, 0. Great. Then get up close and personal. It's behind my dot, so we'll just say 10, 12. Nope. Oh, why would you do that to me? Okay. Oh, there you go. So layer 3, and then we'll put you back. Put baby back in the corner. There you go. Let's try it again. Boom. It's not the same value. Okay, so 13238473. We might have a winner here. Okay. So let's try to stack. So it shouldn't stack on the shield. And I got to go back and check my quantity again, because I removed that down here. No, it's still there, so okay. So it is saying quantity stacked, which means down here on our I wonder if we can simply do this. See what happens. What's the worst thing that happen? I just break it. Uh-huh. Still nothing. Doesn't make sense to me. That should have worked. And here we're, yep. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yep. Start loop stack. A bit frustrating, isn't it? Values. Overlap fixed value. We are making sure that overlap fixed value is displayed correctly. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes, I'm thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, that's one thing we should test. Is line 26 executing? And it kind of is because we're adding a line, but just to make sure. Well, it is executing. All right. Oh, of course it's not adding. I don't have the condition in there for me to add. Because we switch it to scale, but it's still not increasing the scale either, is it? So we still don't have a successful test. Which is weird. It should be doing something. Let's try it like that. Okay, it destroyed both. That's interesting. Still doesn't blow the other one up. That's frustrating. Well, we're close. Yes, fixed values do stay the same when you restart the frame. I do believe they do. And we can double check that. So we know that overlapping, that's 134,35084 is the fixed value. Run it again. Well, run it again. And it's the same value. So yes, it does. Excellent question. And let's see if we have any questions on Google. Yeah, debugging saves lives. That's true. If anyone has any suggestions on what I should do, I'd love to hear it. If not, I'm probably going to have to shelve this one and attack it and post a update later. We got to get to the procedural generation fun. But the idea, again, is that what I'm trying to do is based on the object's generated values, that being object type, object animation slot, and its armor and defense ratings, which you may not use armor. You could have all, how many hit points does it restore, whatever type of values you want to mess with. That's what you can use in your design. But by taking each object and giving it the same stack ID, you should be able to test for if a stack ID is compatible or not. And we're kind of there because I can't stack that, but I can stack that. I can't stack that, and I can't stack that, but I seem to be able to stack this. Now what bothers me though is I can stack, oh, see, that doesn't even stack, so that's good. So we're part of the way there. I just have to figure out how to add to the quantity. So we'll get that done, and I'll update the file on ClickStore. So the other thing I worked on, started it with the GGDA. If you watch the GGDA video from last week on Tuesday, they wanted to do some procedural generation. And, someone will probably argue, if I'm actually doing procedural generation or not. Fine. What I'm doing is using the random pool object to generate a set of random numbers and building algorithms to use those numbers to create worlds that you can regenerate off a seed value. So, in that regard, let's go back to 100% there. And the first thing we did is we created a solar system. So we've got this one object with all these different planet types. I've got the random pool object, or the randomizer object, very, very good object. String parser, the array to save the system. The advanced direction object was used because he also, during that demonstration, wanted to calculate how to store economic information on each planet, like a material type or what have you. And that's what these lists do. These are the different materials that are in the universe, and then these are some values. So when you run it, I get this layout, right? And every time I run it, I get the same layout. Now, if I was to put in a different number and generate, I get a different configuration of a system. Now, if I was to go back to 2, I get a different one, but if I go back to 1, I get the exact same pattern. Now, on this particular demonstration, what we've done is it's kind of grid-based. So what I'm going to do for funsies, I'm going to take this, I'm going to go ahead and capture the picture. We're going to copy that, and we're going to go File, New. I'm going to go, there you go, Insert, and we're going to draw on this. So there's a backdrop, paste, yes please. All right, so what we've done is I've divided up the grid, use red, into, oh, we don't want solid, there we go, into these little grid squares. And we'll get the exact measurement when we look back at the code, okay, because it's obviously not exactly this. But by generating these grid codes, or this grid, if you will, right, and I believe it's 15 by 6 in the actual grid, what we end up doing is creating cells in which that we use the random pool object to pop in the planets. So that's basically the idea. So one thing I didn't do in this example, which I have to do, is check for overlap. We don't want a planet to be in the same spot at the same time. And one way to do that is to generate a list of every permutation, so each cell into a list, and then randomly using the random cell, pick it out. In fact, let's do that. Let's try doing that. We'll go ahead and save you off as a version and close you. Goodbye. And close up our little mock-up there. And then we go into here, and that's for loading the planet, which we're not going to worry about right now. But here is where I'm generating the planet. And currently I'm generating it off these list objects, right? So the very first thing that happens is when we run the frame, I generate a series of random numbers based on the seed. And that's what this does. So 16 by 9, and 0 and 9, and then this 10 was for planet types. Now what we could do is do a nested list. So let's grab a new list. All right. We've already got string parser. And we're going to go ahead and make a nested list. So to do that, we're going to say, give me that, and we'll call it cell horizontal. And the horizontal, we wanted to run it, what was it, 16 times? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. Copy that. And then we're going to go to here, insert a new event on loop, cell horizontal. Okay. And, oh, right. Get out of here. Windows 10 forcing me to reboot. How dare you? Okay. So we got cell horizontal. And then what we're going to do is fast loop, start loop. And we're going to call it cell vertical. And we do this 9 times. Okay. And if I'm doing it right, then insert new event on loop, cell vert. We're going to add a line to our new list, and that's going to be loop index. Let's see, retrieve. Get loop index. So we've got, what do we call it? Well, I guess I still have it in the clipboard. There you go. Plus loop index. Actually, we need a delimiter. So we use our pipe delimiter plus string get loop index, and we'll go with cell vert. And I feel like this is an extra quotation that's not needed. Am I wrong? There you go. Mixed string and numbers. Okay, that's because this somehow deleted the string, or I didn't put it there. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's see if that works. Okay, now the reason why we don't have at the end 16 and 9 is because it's loops are 0 based. So the very first loop is always 0. So to fix that, we need to go back into our loop, go here, break it down to the variable point, or the value point rather, and add those plus 1s. Run it. And now we've got a list of all the cells. Each one of these represents a cell in my space grid. Okay? Now, 16 times 9, so that's what? Quick, someone that's good at math. 16 times 9 should be 144 cells. I'll write that down. Excellent. And then what we do is I'm going to repurpose. Let's move these up here. Comment. Build cells list. And then we're going to remove generate horizontal. We'll remove generate vertical. And we're going to say generate cell selection. Then we're going to copy that, and we're going to go here, change that, and we're going to need 144 of you. Wonderful. Yeah, but now I'm thinking that's not the way I want to do it. In fact, I'm going to get rid of both of those. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of U. And then the generate planet type, we'll keep that. Make planet is where the magic happens. So we'll leave those there. We'll leave that there. But these two are going to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to say on our list 3, string parser, set source string, get line, and then using the random pool object, we're going to say random number, and then that number is going to be the total number of lines, because we can only select a cell once. Okay, and then the X position is going to be 64 times the value of element 1. Thinking that's right. And then same thing here. Y position is 64 times value element 2 for the Y position. I said 2. The 64 is to offset it off the border. Let's see what happens. So everybody stepped to the top. Interesting. Very interesting. One thing I failed to do that I don't think is part of the problem, but we're going to go ahead and check, is I'm going to isolate this number. I'm going to say cell selection, and rather than select, I'm going to make new events, put that up there, and then we're going to take the random number generation based on the number of lines out. We're going to go up here, and we're going to declare that this value is the cell we're selecting. Okay, and then here we're going to set the source string based on that new value. Value, cell selection. And the reason why we're going to do that is because at the end of this line, the end of this event, we're going to delete the line that was just selected. Okay. Let's see if what that does. Still at the top, which means we've got a problem with our Y. And, oh, well, of course it's not working. Can anyone figure out why it's not working? I know. It doesn't look like anybody's watching anyways. Anybody watching? The issue is I haven't declared the delimiter. You know, it doesn't know what to delimit if it doesn't have a delimiter. It's pulling the first value successfully, which is the X, because that was the first number. It shouldn't. It should just bug out because it should be one whole string without the delimiter. However, we can fix this easily by going here, here, delimiters, set delimiter, grab our delimiter. Remember, kids, delimiters are your friends. And now we've got a solar system that is doing the exact same thing every time. Excellent. Wonderful. So now we can assure that we never have planets overlapping each other, which is what I wanted to make sure of. Now we could crank this up because now we know how many cells there are. We could say, give me, give me 20 planets, right? Not 520, that's too many. 20 planets, and then run it. And now we've got more planets in our little solar system here. And you'll see that the list, if we look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then there's 8. So 14, 8 was selected. It's one of these guys over here. 13, nothing at 13, 15. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So none on the bottom row was detected, which this new method makes me think I should probably, when positioning the planets, remove the 64 additional pixels. So let's see how that looks by removing these bad boys. Let's rename our list. Available cells. Let's shrink it back down to the minimum size. And let's hide it because, you know, it's just ugly. We don't need it. Goodbye. Yeah, see, that looks a little better. Now, to fix the random generation is easy. So we get the random button here. We change the seed. We set the seed value. We destroy the planets. And then I just have to change the loops here to this. And then I'll drop this here. And that's good. And we should reset the new list. And I believe we're good. Something off though. Cell horizontal. Okay, yeah. And then, okay, so random, 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 random. There we go. So there's a way to make endless procedural generated galaxies. So 6967, I store that value, right? The game's off. I need that galaxy again. Boom. There it isn't. It didn't work right for some reason. Oh, that's because it generate is different. Random though. So we need to fix generate. So go to generates, and it's the same situation. We need to pop that in there, and everything else looks good, except I need to reset here. Okay, so generate should work. So we'll do it again. So random, 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 random. Let's find one that, okay, so in this one we've got a gas giant next to a moon. I want to copy that, right? And then we just randomize some more. But if I were to put that code back in and generate, there we go. So it's a great way to build content, in this case a space map, with nothing more than some algorithm and the seed value. Now, what else can you do with that, right? So I tried making trees today. So folks, don't get upset if my trees are ugly. But using the same kind of methodology, I built these trees. So here's the code for creating the tree. We start by creating the base of the tree. Mind you, what you're going to see, besides the background, the two background objects and a sprite for the player, everything is built out of these two objects. So we've got a trunk, which is this guy right here, right? And you know it's solid colors right now, but you could change the colors. And then we've got these for branches, if you will. So in fact we should rename that. Rename branches. And if I run it, I got trees. Okay. Now you can see the configuration of the trees, and I'm at a seed value of 5341. So what I did is when I'm moving around, right, I could exit, and now it's 5340. So this is what the configuration with the seed value of 5340. But I can go back, and it's 5341 again, and it's exactly the same way I left it. And the cool thing about doing procedural generation this way is you can create an entire world just with a little bit of math and some randomization with this particular object. Actually, I do a lot of this in BitOdyssey. Pretty much all of it's procedurally generated. A little more complex, but not a whole lot more complex. In fact, I think I like these trees a little bit more because everything in my game is all just based on squares, and on this particular demonstration, I toyed with taking the branches, and they're not quite square shapes. So another excellent example of how you can design using string parser, randomizer object, and a little bit of math in manipulating your objects. You can create, you know, whole new worlds. Does anyone have any questions so far about it? What would you like to see procedurally generated next? Anybody? No. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Jeff, do you have any questions for me? You still here? Jeff or Perry or Bitmap Impact or Simon or Null West. Anybody got any questions on procedural generation? I think these trees look all right. One thing I'd probably do is want to make the trunks a little more detailed. So what we could do, give them kind of a round feel. We could center, well, center color, go with lighter color, maybe this. Go here, cut down the pressure, right? And then maybe a little darker. No, I said darker. Darker, fool, darker. Okay, up a little bit. Great. And then maybe over here we go really dark. Okay, and then we would do something similar. So maybe I take this, and this is an overall darker shade, so I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to go darker, and I'm going to just tap it, give it a little tap. This has a redder color, so then I paste again. This time I select a redder color, and I just tap it, and let's see how that looks. All right, so now because when we stretch it, we kind of give it that angled feel. Now I don't know if I like it being such a gradient. It doesn't really match the tree very well. So we'd have to check our stretch algorithm, which I believe is set to 1. So we get quality 1. If I jump it down to quality 0, I should get a different effect. One that is more pixelated without the anti-aliasing. Yeah, see, that looks more in line with the rest of the art. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it is the randomizer, Jeff. And yeah, you just load the object, and then that's where the random stuff. I just loaded the object. Yes, that's where the random seed stuff goes. Yes, it is. Again, it is the randomizer object. Remember, when you're using it, if you're going to try to tie it into a seed value, which is great, again, because that's the key to, making worlds that you can go back to, or stuff that is specifically designed and repeatable. I mean, you could randomize it, but then, you wouldn't be able to return to a particular world. So you need to set your seed first, and then you can generate your numbers. In some cases, I have to generate the numbers into a list because I want to refer back to the list. So if you look at some of the work in the game Bit Odyssey, I have to refer back to make the world more organic. I have to refer back to the numbers previously used. In fact, we do that here in the tree example a little bit. And we can take a look at that. So here, I set pass value 1, right? The random number of 0 to 136. And so what that is I'm picking on that particular frame an X position between the left and right of the frame, which is 136 pixels. 1136 pixels. So when I set that, instead of just setting it into the object, which I could have done and originally was doing here, right? I could have taken that random number 1136 and slapped it here. The next time I pull that number, I'm not going to be able to refer to it. So by sticking it into my local value storage, I can refer to it here, but down here I can also refer to it when I'm setting X position of the branches. So sometimes you want to either put them in a list or store them temporarily, because every time you call random number or random range, it's going to generate another random number in its pool sequence, and you won't be able to refer back to the other one. So sometimes it makes sense when you're generating these organic worlds or buildings or whatever you want to generate, that you refer by storing the random numbers that you use. And in some cases, again, I've used list objects. Other cases, you see here, we store them into a local temporary storage. We do that here too. So pass value 4 and pass value 5 are being used to create the angling of the tree. So the angle starts at either 360 or 180, and then as the loop index increases, we tilt down. But to randomize it, we put in this pass value 4, which adds a little bit of randomization to it, which randomization, again, is how things end up looking alive. And then animation frame 5, the reason why I decided to do that is the 8 represents the number of frames in the branch's animation slot. And originally it was just randomly poking them in, but it didn't look right. In fact, we can compare. So I'll run it. I'm going to take a photo of this so we can see what it looks like now. All right. Photo. And then using the same scene, I'm going to copy this. And we'll just drop it into each one of these. Of course, it would help if I actually copied correctly. All right, and we drop it in here, we drop it in here, we drop it in here. And now, to me, that looked a little messier. And the most noticeable difference is I can see the seam between the two objects more noticeably compared to this. To me, that looks a little more organic. So by storing that value, I was able to match both sides of the tree color. I don't know which one you prefer, but I kind of liked that one better when I was building the procedural generation example. What do you guys think? Which one's better to you? Let's see. This is not a very efficient way to see if anyone in YouTube's asking questions. Okay. How about animating branches a little by rotation? Okay, excellent. Let's do that. So over in YouTube, Bitmap Impact, an incredible Fusion user who's doing some amazing things with Firefly. In fact, if you're listening, and I know you are, maybe you'd like to do a stream with us one day. His game's looking great, and apparently he's working on an editor. It's amazing stuff. He just put a YouTube video up. I believe I shared it to Twitter. Go to the Click Team Twitter page and take a look at the video. It's amazing. So yes, let's try animating it. So these are active objects, as you can tell up here. We have 335 of them, and that's the only downside by using this method is you can get object heavy. In fact, I talked to Eves about it. We still don't have a way in 2 to take a stretched or angled object, paste it into the background, and retain its recently manipulated shape, which is a shame because that would really be cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is repair what I just did. Doot, doot, and one more. And we're good. And then we go back to that type of tree. So how would we create the wind? Well, let's first see if we can even get one to work. So let's start by giving it a new value, and we'll say wind change. Okay, and then we're going to randomly pick a branch. So pick one at random, just to see if we can affect a change. And then we're going to say set output value A to 5 minus random 10, which will give us a value between -5 and 5. And then we're going to say if output value wind change is lower than 0, then we're going to set angle by retrieving the angle and subtracting 1. And then we'll do maximum speed just to see how it looks. And then we got to make sure that we add to wind change so that it's not rotating the whole time. Then we copy that, and then we change it to greater. And then we go ahead and change that to plus. And we change this to subtract. Output value subtract from wind change 1. All right, so just a real down and dirty, see what we can do. Let's see what happens. Wow, I don't know what's happening there. Let's see what I did wrong. Well, it doesn't help that I'm setting scale. I'm supposed to be setting angle. Why didn't somebody tell me I was doing that? You guys are supposed to be on the ball here for me. So let's copy that. Let's make sure I select the right action this time. Set angle. Get angle +1. Excellent. 0. Get rid of this scale business. This is going to be such troll fodder later. So our trolls only visited us very little this week. It's kind of disappointing. I was really hoping to get some more interesting comments from them, but you know, what can you do? Here we go. There you go. So it's kind of doing it. What do you think, bitmap impact? Do you think that's close, or what do you want to change? You know, we could compress it too. We could compress the X scale to make it feel like the wind's pushing it potentially. I wonder how that would work. Let's give it a shot. So, we wouldn't want it to. We'd want it to bounce back. We'd want the scale to bounce back. So, set wind change to 5 minus random 10. Ultra value set B to I'm not even going to change ultra value B. I'm going to declare it X scale for wind. X scale for wind. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add to X scale for wind 1. And then we're going to scale set X scale to current scale +1. And we'll leave it like that. And let's just put that there. And then we'll do the same thing down here. And we're going to still add to scale. I'm sorry, variable A, add to X scale for wind, grade 1. So, doesn't matter which direction the wind's blowing the branch, it's going to increase the scale. I actually needed to subtract the scale, so that was a mistake. So let's go down here to our wind generation and let's subtract. Okay. But then it's going to add to that value, value X scale for wind 1. So it should end up being 5 by the time we're done. And yeah, we see things shrinking, okay, which is fine. Now, why I did that is because once the scale, the wind change scale is greater than, or rather greater or equal, just for safety's sake, okay, then we're going to first put its flag on, set on, flag 0, and we should probably name the flag is scaled back. So if it is scaled back, and we're also going to make sure that we can only select a branch that is not scaled back. That's wrong. Insert, scale is off, is scaled back. Great. So with this current set of conditions, they should only shrink so much and then stop. Of course, it doesn't seem to be doing it. They seem to be consistently shrinking, which tells me that maybe I need to do it this way. Oh, they keep shrinking. That's interesting. Wind change. Is scale back off. Pick one. So select all the ones that are off and then pick one of them, set the value. If the X scale for wind is greater or equal than 4, which it should be, then set is scaled on. It should work. I don't know why it's not working. Subtract 1 from wind change, so it should hit 0. All right, well, the idea was that if the flag is on, right, if the flag is on, then we would reverse this, +1, 0, and then we would say value, set ultimate value, win x scale. Oh, I should just use the old value, subtract from x scale for win 1. Whoa! Okay, well, see, that makes sense because, well, that's trippy. I never turn the flag back off. So the way to do that is equals, well, just lower or equal just in case. 0, then we're going to put the flag back on, back off. So Alone Dan wants to know if the host, which I'm assuming is this guy, would like to have an opinion of his music. So Alone, can you link us to your music so I can know which music you're referring to? And Bitmap, are you happy with our wind in the trees, or do we need to do some more? I don't know if I'm happy. It's probably could require a little more work. It doesn't seem to be in sequence, if that makes sense. So maybe what we need to do is, instead of picking one, let's see what happens when we do that. Oh, there you go. That's weird, but it's close. So that's a windstorm right there. So we'd have to program some tolerances because you can see that the tree branches just keep kind of going up. I need to run away from the storm. It's pretty stormy out here. Actually looks kind of cool. If we can just get the angle to stay within its tolerance level. So why is it doing that? It should always go, okay, so it's probably, because it's random, you get several that keep going one direction and several going the other direction. So what we have to do is change that. So is scaled back off plus So he wants me to go to ClickStore and search his music. All right. Feels like this is kind of a sales pitch for Mr. Dan here, but you know what? I like folks, so that's fine. And maybe if I spell, yeah. Use alts to set to default angle, says Simon. So I've searched Alone Dan, A-L-O-N space Dan, and there's no music here. So I don't know what to do with that. Maybe for giggles, we'll just search no, and we'll search. Okay, is this you? Let's see. You're not Joe Bro Media, are you? I don't think so. Are you? Yeah, I see what you're saying, Simon. Simon, that would actually work, wouldn't it? Yeah, that could work. So what he's saying is I need to store the initial angle, and instead of setting angle to angle of -1, I set angle to its base angle, and then manipulate it based on the values, which that could actually work. So on our branch creation, we got the angle right here. So for branches, we're going to add a new value that's base angle. It's the name of our new band, base angle. And then we're going to go ahead and insert, set value, base angle, retrieve the angle. Retrieve the angle. Okay. And then we paste that in here. Great. Now here, when we set angle to base angle. Okay. And I'm got to do a little bit more than that. We've got to say, so we want it to flow back and forth. So I can't start at 5. I need to go up to 5. So I could say, let's try this. Let's say set wind change to 5. And then I could say set angle to base angle to, if this is the right one. No, it's less than. So let's go to here. And we'll copy this. And we'll grab this. And then we'll say plus value, which is the, nope, value, which is the wind change, right? But then we will say the wind change minus base angle. Now I'm having a brain fart. It was there. It was there. Okay, so wind change starts at 5, and then I'm going to subtract from it. So 5 minus 5. Well, actually 5 minus 5 equals 0. But then this becomes 4 and 3, and then it angles out. And we need to make sure that instead of subtracting, we're adding. No, we still want to subtract. That was stupid. Okay, I'm just going to deactivate this. See what we get. Yeah, so it's kind of doing it. All right, good. Now we got to reverse it back down. And we do that by saying wind change equals 5. So then we'll put in another flag, wind direction. And this all occurs if wind direction flag is off. Okay. So if wind direction change is greater than 0 and wind direction flag is off, then actually we're going to make that on. We're going to make it on. Well, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to make it on because that's the kind of guy I am. Insert flag set. Oh, insert flag set on. Flag on. Wind direction. Okay. Do we get the same effect? Yes. Okay. Now, if flag is on, wind direction, and if wind direction wind change rather equals 0, right? Then we're going to go ahead and can I toggle that? Nope. Replace flag set off wind direction. Okay. And then I'm going to take that, negate. We're going to set this back to 5. Okay, so now we got wind direction is off, and we're going to set minus, and then it's just going to be wind change. And that should bring it back down, I think. Maybe. Yeah, it's kind of doing it. So we're close. Oh, that's cool that you alone you did the Binding of Isaac and animated the ending cutscenes. That's awesome. Uh, and yeah, it's cool, man. And let's see, Perry went to YouTube. Oh, okay. Let's see if there's any questions on Twitch, because I'm on YouTube right now. And check subcategory. Yeah, okay. So yeah, what I don't like now is that there's this kind of rhythmic. I need the push in to be more random. So I'm almost wondering if we should go back to pick one. No, that doesn't work. So let's go ahead and well, we could say random 3, 2 plus random 3. Still got the pick one on it. Better. That's better. That almost works. That almost looks like windy trees. Almost. What do you guys think? We have windy trees now? Oh, the Tiny World music? Let's take a look. Tiny World. There you go. This one. Okay, so this is his music. It's the one item he has. And he wants us to play it. I'll go ahead and do that. Let me cut my Noble Armada music off here real quick. Alright. I mean, I like it. I also like how you've got this kind of marquee grab it now. Like, grab it now. Limited time. So that's cool. A secret to success on the Click Store is to have more than one high quality item on it. Not that I'm saying all my items are high quality in any way, shape, or form, but the people who submit really high quality items that are in quantity, as an example, would be, let's see here, let's go to libraries, effects libraries. If you take a look at our good friend Clement, he's got a huge selection of really awesome stuff, and he does very well in ClickStore. And that's because not only is his stuff awesome, which helps, but he's got multiple exposures to folks that search the store, which helps increase your sales. I don't know if that helps your question at all, if that was even your question to begin with. But that's one thing you could probably do. And someone with your talents, if you wanted to capitalize a little bit more on the ClickStore revenue that you can make, that would be one way to do it. So thanks for sharing your music. Appreciate it. And great stuff. Does anyone else have any other questions? Let's take a look here. I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions. I must have bored you guys to death today. Bored you to death. So I guess before we go, let's run it one more time. Does this look like wind in the trees now? Have we successfully created wind in our trees? Wind in our trees. Things like this I'd want to fix right here. See right here where it's exposing the top of the tree? I don't like that. These look great. But this one, it's like, what's going on here? Let's randomize it a little bit. So it starts out kind of in sequence, but then it kind of blows into wind. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. What do you guys think? Sound effects. I'd probably want to run an initial fast loop or something that kind of gives it this effect instead of what you see when it first starts up. When it first starts up, the wind seems to have them in sequence. This is the one case where it starts out in sequence and I want to get them out of sequence. Oh, my opinions aren't important. Come on. Me. Yeah. So I think Bitmap says, yeah, they kind of look like trees in the wind. But building all this on literally, minus the wind effect, we built that entire world on these lines of code right here. That's it. Now, if you expand that, you know, and I guess I can pull up, go ahead and pull up Bitmap, BitOdyssey. So where's my latest one? I guess that's the latest one I have here. Yeah, thank you. I'll ignore it. Thanks. Great. So the same theory can be used. So here's the planets. So there's ice. So actually, I got to go into the code real quick. And let's see here. Random world. Where's my random code? Okay, there we go. So we turn this off. So I create a random alterable value W sets the world selection of the tool hint icon. Probably poor choice at the time to store it there, but I've been working on this one for a while. And these are the different types of worlds that it can generate, right? So I've got these counters. The counters are, you know, how much of a particular item we create at runtime. So in our tree example, we're creating 20 iterations of the trees. You can further randomize it by feeding values into these objects. So like 20. So I will create 20 crystals here, but on this world, which is what do we call it? A green crystal world. It's for some reason still 20, but other places it's 0. And then down here, you've got create stone walls. And there is the procedural generation. And I loaded all my, as I mentioned earlier, I loaded all my values in, let's find it, in these list objects. So there's the randomizer object. And you can see here, I'm building lists of different numbers with different ranges, because then I refer to them. And the advantage to that is now I've got all these different types of worlds in just one bit of procedural generation. And it just goes on and on and on. You know, so on this world, you know, there's lava, but then I can go here. Well, that's because I've removed the security that prevents it from randomizing. So when you turn the randomization off, I go through a door. It does exactly what we do in the tree level. It removes or adds to the seed value so that you can return to it. But I left the randomization on, so it's not going to work right. These guys look like they're in trouble. I don't know if I have a doctor with me. I don't have a doctor with me or an engineer. You should go to the, when this generates this mission, you should be there with a doctor and engineer. So, you guys are on your own. So, yeah, that's, you know, one thing you can do. So if you guys like the procedural generation algorithms that I simply put together and you want it as an example, let me know on the Patreon and I will build them up a little bit more, make them nicer. And then I'll put it on ClickStore for you guys to have access to as Reactants members. Simon actually came up with the name Reactants for Reactor members. I like it. So everybody give Simon a hard time in chat right now. But yeah, that's I think that'll do it for today. You guys have any questions for me? So Mr. Dan is asking if we would like original random cartoons. I don't know. What you put on ClickStore, you know, a majority of the people that are shopping on ClickStore are shopping for things to help them in their projects. If your cartoons can help them in their projects, then yes. But if your cartoons are really specific for something, then, you know, you can only put that in so many projects. we're working on some art assets with our artist. And what I told him to try to do is to make sets that you can configure into whatever you want. If that's something you can do, that might work. Music has always got a place. We don't sell a lot of music, but we don't have a lot of music on there. And you know, but every year ClickStore is growing, so and the amount of revenue it generates and volume of transactions grows as well. So you know, anything you want to contribute, give it a shot. I mean, if you have those assets already made, then you know, what's it going to hurt? If you're not using them and you don't have them slated for a project that you want to do commercially, then render them up and put them in some objects in Fusion, or put the raw files up and stick them on ClickStore. We'll get them up, see what happens. You know, you never know what's going to happen, right? Scott didn't think Five Nights at Freddy's was going to explode, and it did. So you never know what's going to happen. Great question. Sure, Fusion can run games like that. I personally, now the game I just showed you, Bit Odyssey, the reason why it's such small resolution, that's intentional because I'm really looking for an old kind of Atari feel. The game is heavily inspired by the following game, Starflight. What is it? The name of the studio is... well, I can't remember. Let's just see if the game pops up. Yeah, here it is. So it's based on this game here. That is the Sega Genesis version, I think. But you can still see very blocky in its presentation. So I went with a smaller resolution as part of that visual challenge. I personally like to work on 1136 by 640, but I'm probably going to upgrade soon. The reason I went with 1136 by 640 is it looked great on, up to a year ago, looked great on highest resolution devices, and still looked good on lower resolution devices. Speaking of the mobile platform, and you know, on the PC it looked all right too. But I'm thinking about bumping up to the 1280 range, maybe even up to the 1920 range, depending on the project. But yeah, it can run it. You know, Fusion's a programming language. I don't care what anybody tells you; it's a programming language. Whatever you can do, it can do it. Now, if you build a game with 9,000 objects and each object has hundreds and hundreds of animation frames, well, then you really haven't optimized your work, and it's going to run like a dog. And you can blame the tool all you want, but it doesn't matter what programming language you're in. You still have to optimize your work. So that's a consideration. But that's a great question. Thank you. No problem. We all, you know, are trying. English is my native language, and I don't speak it that well. Ask Simon, because I'm American, and Americans have shitty English. He'll tell you. He speaks the Queen's English. Any other questions today, guys? What's the topic for next week's stream? So, Jeff, as soon as I get off the stream, I'm going to post on the Patreon to let our patron guys tell me what they want to see next. And then I'll pick something out of that list. So it's up to you guys. That's what the Reactor is all about. You tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to try to do it. So great question. Look for that post real soon. Her Majesty's English. Okay, all right. Great. Thanks, Simon. For those of you who don't know, Simon is Simon from Click Team. So say hello to Simon from Click Team. He's keeping track on me, making sure I haven't gone off script. Don't want to go off reservation. What about a card game style like Hearthstone? Is this an awesome idea or what? Sure. You can do a card game. One of the first card games I remember that did very well was, and if I'm not mistaken, written by the guy who did Crossy Roads, was Fairy, or at least he participated. I always spell Fairy the English way incorrectly. Solitaire, so maybe this will help correct my Google. There we go. And there's the game. So this is a solitaire game made in Fusion that did very well early on, about 8 years ago. I still have it on my phone. It's one of the few reasons I haven't updated my Apple device to 11, because it's not a 64-bit app, and he hasn't updated it. They haven't updated it. But it was a really cool solitaire game, and I was working on a solitaire game at one point too. So absolutely, can you make card games with? Look, if it's, we used to say if it's 2D and you have an idea, you can do it in Fusion. And we're working on the 3D, as you know, with Firefly too. So, you know, the end game for Fusion is to make programming language that is for everyone. Speak your native language, use it to write code in the event editor. That's our mission. And so yeah, if you want to make a 2D card game, go for it. Get out there, do it, make it happen. Will online multiplayer be easier in Fusion 3? Online multiplayer is definitely something that Click Team struggled with, and we do need to work on that. The closest thing we have right now functionality-wise is the Lacewing objects, and they work, but they themselves need a bit of work. We certainly want Fusion 3 to have good online multiplayer capability. The state of online multiplayer capability in Fusion 3 at release, at this point, I really don't know. I know it's been talked about. I know it's a concern, but I don't have the information from the programmers, so I really can't tell you, yes, it's going to be at launch, or no, it's going to be a couple months later, or what. I just don't know. So keep reminding us. You bought Firefly but didn't use it. Well, then what are you doing in this chat? Go get on Firefly, man. Get out of here. Go start using Firefly. There's amazing things going on with Firefly. Again, you should look at Bitmap Impact, what he's doing with Firefly. In fact, let's go to Twitter and check it out. It's great stuff. You can see it's the first tweet on my tweet list. And let's take a look. You know, it's good looking stuff. He added this really cool, very pixelated song to it. Everybody loves that. So there's this editor that I was talking about. I believe, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, the editor is also written in Fusion, which is super awesome. So he used the Firefly objects not only to render his game, but to actually make this editor. And this is a sample of what his world looks like that he built in the editor that you can play in his game. Pretty cool stuff. We'll take a watch. You can see down here different, I'm assuming these are textures, or maybe they're models, I don't know. At one point he actually manipulates a model or a flat texture in the editor. We'll see that in a second. Schmotat? Am I saying it right? Schmotat? That's a fun word. Alright, so we've got someone in Twitch saying, is Fusion better than GameMaker Studio 2? Hey, you know what? I don't know. I haven't really used GameMaker Studio 2. I have used Fusion for 17 years in one flavor or another. Ended up working for the company almost 10 years ago, and I really haven't looked back. I really can't answer the question. What I can tell you is that Click Team is the oldest and original programming for the rest of us tool, and we've got a ton of experience in it, and we're going to continue to push and really make some cool stuff. So, you know, you're the one who has to decide which one's better. I have a feeling when Fusion 3 comes out, based on everything I've seen and everything that we plan, it's going to be groundbreaking. That's my belief. And that's why it's taking as long as it's taking, is because we want to deliver on the groundbreaking promise. You know, programming started out as, you know, vacuum tubes in a you know, mainframe, and then we figured out how to make assembly, and we punch cards, and then we went from that to, you know, the first round of scripted programming with interpreters and compilers, and, you know, that evolved from as simple as BASIC to, you know, today's C. I believe that when Fusion has done its evolution completely, it'll be another step in that direction. The tool speaks for itself when I can go and teach, like I have over the last 3 months, kids as young as 7 and 8 years old to make their own games. And not only teach them how to do it and go step by step and make some, you know, clone of a game, but then say, hey, figure something out, make it on your own. And they actually succeed at it. So I don't know if that answers your question concerning which is better. That's up to you to decide, but I'm a diehard Fusion user, and I probably always will be. So fiddlesticks, I hope that answers the question as best I could. Thank you for it. Let's see what other questions we might have. Is there a tiny chance that Fusion 3 will come out during 2018? No rush. I'm just curious. Is inspiring to know. Sorry if these questions are annoying. They're not annoying. If you've been watching the Fusion 3 thread, we're currently not talking about the release date. That's all I can tell you. I will supplement that with telling you that we're all working really hard to make sure that every single complaint and issue that we fully aware exists in the product and in how the company operates are being addressed. And it's a really big balancing act because not only do we want to fix the things that everybody doesn't like about how the company runs, but we also want to maintain all the things that you do love about ClickTeam, which is, you know, one-on-one communication with the staff and you know, instant access to information, sometimes even from, you know, Eves or some of the other programmers right on the forums, the one-on-one personal, really, you know, users close to the ClickTeam staff kind of relationship we've had for years, the super helpful forum, all these things that, you know, we're well known for, we want to keep together. But you got to know that the things that folks have complained about as far as, you know, operations are concerned, the two sometimes conflict. You fix one thing and it's going to take away from some of the benefits that folks have enjoyed. So we're working really hard to make sure that we don't only launch Fusion 3 as soon as possible, but that we launch it correctly and we also relaunch the company in a way that is beneficial for everybody. You know, I've known a lot of people that have had their lives changed at one point or another by Fusion. I'd say the coolest story I've ever heard was doing a GDC. For those of you that don't know what GDC is, it's the Game Developers Conference. And we were lucky enough, I was able to finagle Francois, one of the founders, to come over. And, you know, Francois had been working on it for 20 plus years, you know, way back as Amos and Stas and then Click and Play and Click and Create and all that. And I don't think he ever really realized how much of impact Fusion's had on people. And so this was 2012, I think, or 2011, I'm not quite sure. 2012, I think. And this guy walks right up to us. He walks up to me and he introduces himself and he says, yeah, I've been a Fusion user for a while. I haven't used it much lately, but I got started programming in Fusion. I'm like, oh yeah, really? And I go, what do you do now? And he says, well, you know, I'm the head of, I don't know what the title was, but it was the head of Lucas Arts, the game studio. We're talking about Lucasfilm's game studio, LucasArts, and the head of it is sitting here telling me that he used Fusion. That's how it got him started. I guess it was Click and Play. And I said, that's incredible. You got to tell this to Francois. And he lit up. He goes like, Francois Leonette's here? And I'm like, yes, he is. He's right over there. And he goes over, he tells him the story. He says, I got started. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for your tool. And man, Francois had to excuse himself after that because that hit him in the chest in a positive way. But, you know, we want to deliver on more of that promise of programming for everyone and, you know, bring more people into ClickTeam and into programming in general. So, yeah, that was a cool story. Any other questions? Let's see here. How many programmers work on Fusion 3? The exact correct amount. Yes. Could we use more? Probably. But we have the exact right amount. But thank you for asking. So, yeah, I think we did almost 2 hours and 15 minutes. If there's some more questions, I'll answer them. But I'm being told by the CFO, my wife, that it's time to go eat. So I have to get off. If you haven't checked out the Reactor yet and you're not a member, please go here to click, here, and sign up and get a bunch of free stuff. It supports these streams. Every month we have new high-quality ClickStore items for free for Reactor members, and then you get all the different examples I'm doing, like the inventory quest, which we released last week. And then all of these are different examples that are consistently free for Reactor users. Code giveaways and a bunch of other stuff. Pretty cool stuff. One-on-one help if you need it, depending on the tier. Check it out. Again, it's at patreon.com/ClickTeam. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And we'll see you next Friday. Reactor members, make sure to check on the patron page and let me know what I should get ready to do next week. And if you want me to edit, change, do anything extra to the procedural generation example, I want to flesh it out a little bit more. And then I will, before updating before next Friday, I will fix the stacking on the inventory example. So let's see if there's any other last minute questions. I'll stick around for a few minutes and type in some answers for questions. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you, and we'll see you later.